I sat quietly at the dinner table, watching my parents beam at my brother Travis as he described his latest work project. My father clapped him on the shoulder, his face glowing with pride. When I mentioned a challenging project at my own job, my father laughed dismissively. My mother smiled that familiar, condescending smile and added, "Hudson, you will never be as good as your brother." Something snapped inside me after years of this treatment. I stood up, looked directly at them, and calmly said, "Then tell him to pay all the bills. I am not sending money anymore." My mother went pale. "What money? We never received a single dollar from you." The stunned silence that followed my statement had been 32 years in the making. Growing up in our suburban home in Pennsylvania, I had always been the afterthought, the second son who somehow never measured up to my older brother Travis, despite all evidence to the contrary. The pattern started early. When I was 7, I entered the elementary school science fair with a project on renewable energy that won second place at the statewide competition. My parents attended but spent the entire event talking about how Travis had received a participation ribbon in his baseball tournament the previous weekend. While other parents took photos of their children beside their award-winning projects, mine stood awkwardly next to Travis, making him hold my certificate since they thought it made for a better family picture. By middle school, I had discovered a natural talent for mathematics. My 8th grade teacher entered me in a regional math competition where I placed first and qualified for nationals. The national competition fell on the same weekend as one of Travis's baseball games. Travis mostly sat on the bench that season, but my parents attended his game rather than my competition. My math teacher, Mr. Garner, ended up driving me to the event 3 hours away. "Your parents must be very proud," one of the judges told me, after I received 3rd place nationally. "They would be," I said quietly, "if they were here." The judge's confused expression stayed with me for years. When I entered high school, my guidance counselor, Mrs. Adams, called my parents in for a meeting after seeing my aptitude test results. "Hudson shows remarkable financial intelligence," she told them. "His analytical skills are off the charts. He should consider advanced placement courses in mathematics and economics. He could have a brilliant future in finance." My father waved his hand dismissively. "That is just school stuff. Travis is the one with real-world smarts." Mrs. Adams looked bewildered. "But sir, Hudson's scores are in the 99th percentile nationally. This is exceptional." My mother patted my hand. "We know Hudson tries his best, but we have to be realistic about his limitations." I stopped sharing my achievements after that. I kept a private journal of my accomplishments, certificates, and awards hidden in my bedroom. It became my personal validation, the only place where my successes were documented and celebrated. Then came the day that changed everything. I returned home from school to find my journal missing from its hiding place under my mattress. After searching frantically, I decided to check Travis's room. There it was, on his desk, open to a page where I had written about winning the school investment club competition. Travis had scribbled in the margins, "Boring money stuff that nobody cares about." What a loser. When I confronted Travis, his response shocked me more than finding the journal. "Mom and Dad gave it to me," he said with a shrug. "They found it when they were changing your sheets. They thought I should see what kind of stuff you were writing about yourself." "That was private," I said, my voice shaking. "They were worried you were getting a big head about this finance stuff. Dad says it is better you learn now that being good at tests does not mean you will be successful in real life." When I confronted my parents, their response was even more disappointing. "Hudson, we were concerned," my mother explained. "You seem to think these little academic achievements mean something important. We are trying to protect you from disappointment later in life. By giving my private journal to Travis to mock? Do not be so dramatic," my father said. "Travis is just helping to keep you humble. You should be thankful." That night, I made a decision that would shape the next decade of my life. I would keep my successes private, not just from my family, but from anyone who might report back to them. I would build my life quietly, without seeking their validation or approval. 2 weeks later, I was offered my first job at the local bank, filing paperwork after school. I told no one in my family about it. When they asked where I was going after school, I said study group. They never questioned it further. That was the beginning of my separate life, one where I could achieve without being diminished. By senior year of high school, I had saved nearly $6,000 from my bank job and built an impressive resume of financial experience. My guidance counselor helped me apply for scholarships, and to my amazement, I received a full ride to Wharton School of Business at the University of Pennsylvania. When the acceptance letter arrived, I showed it to my parents, hoping that perhaps the prestige of the school might finally impress them. "Full scholarship?" my father said, scanning the letter. "They probably needed to fill some kind of quota." "What quota would that be?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. My mother took the letter. "You know how these schools are now, always looking for different types of students. I am sure you fit some category they needed. The category of students with perfect SAT math scores and 4 years of relevant work experience?" My father chuckled. "Do not get defensive, Hudson. We are just saying there is probably more to it than just your grades. No need to get a big head about it." Meanwhile, Travis had dropped out of community college after 1 semester, claiming he was too entrepreneurial for structured education. He spent the next year living at home, talking about business ideas but never actually starting anything. Yet my parents constantly praised his entrepreneurial spirit and independent thinking. "Travis is a visionary," my father would tell family friends. "He sees opportunities others miss." I left for college that fall with a mixture of excitement and relief. For the first time, I would be living in an environment where achievement was actually valued. The distance from my family felt like freedom. At Wharton, I met Professor Wilson in my financial analysis class. After I aced his notoriously difficult midterm exam, he asked me to stay after class. "Hudson, I've been teaching for 23 years, he said, and I have never seen someone with your natural intuition for market dynamics. Have you considered applying for the national investment competition?" I had not, but with Professor Wilson's mentoring, I entered and made it to the finals. The competition was covered by several financial publications, and my analysis of emerging market opportunities earned national recognition. I did not tell my family about the competition, but I did send them the certificate I received, thinking perhaps something covered in national publications might finally earn their respect. When I called home the following week, I asked if they had received my package. "Oh, was that from you?" my mother said. "We thought it was just junk mail," and threw it away. "It was my award certificate from the national competition," I said, my heart sinking. I was one of 3 finalists in the country. "Well, how were we supposed to know that?" "Next time, write a note or something." I never sent anything home again. The summer after my junior year, I secured a highly competitive internship at Goldman Sachs in New York. It was an opportunity that could set the trajectory of my entire career. I was assigned to a team working on a major acquisition deal, and my analytical skills quickly caught the attention of senior managers. 3 weeks into the internship, I was called into my supervisor's office. When I arrived, I was shocked to find Travis sitting there, looking uncomfortable. "Hudson, this young man claims to be your brother," my supervisor said, his expression serious. "He says there is a family emergency." "What emergency?" I asked, looking at Travis. "Can we talk privately?" Travis asked. My supervisor left us alone, and as soon as the door closed, Travis's demeanor changed. "I need money," he said. $3,000. By tomorrow." "What? Why would you come to my workplace for that?" "Because you have it, and I know you do. You have always been secretly saving. That is not the point. You cannot just show up at my internship." "Look," Travis said, his voice rising. "I told Mom and Dad you stole money from them before leaving for college. I had to explain where the missing cash went." "What missing cash?" "Dad had some money saved in his dresser. I took it, but I told them, you must have taken it for college expenses." I stared at him in disbelief. "You accused me of stealing from our parents, and then you came here to actually steal from me?" "Not stealing," Travis said, offended. "Borrowing. And if you do not help me, I will tell your boss you did steal from our parents. How do you think that will look for your precious career? I asked him to leave immediately and told him never to contact me at work again. I did not give him any money. The next day, my supervisor called me in and asked if everything was all right. Apparently, Travis had left a message claiming I had a history of financial impropriety. Fortunately, my work spoke for itself, and the incident did not derail my internship. But it was a turning point. I changed my phone number that night and cut off regular contact with my family for the remainder of college. I focused entirely on my studies and building my professional network. I graduated summa cum laude, accepted an entry-level position at a prestigious firm in New York, and moved forward with my life. I sent my parents a short note with my new address, but I did not invite them to my graduation. The division between us had grown too wide to bridge with a simple ceremony. My career trajectory after college surprised even me. I had always known I had a talent for financial strategy, but the pace of my professional advancement was remarkable by any standard. I started as an analyst at Meridian Financial Group, a mid-sized but respected firm in Manhattan. Within 6 months, my risk assessment model had saved a client millions of dollars on an acquisition deal, and I was promoted to senior analyst. By the end of my first year, I had been moved to the special projects team, working directly with the executive leadership. "You have a gift, Hudson," my director told me during my first performance review. "You see patterns others miss. We have people who have been here 10 years who do not have your instincts." At Meridian, I also met Ryan Thompson, a fellow analyst who became my first genuine friend since college. Ryan was straightforward, honest, and unlike anyone in my family, he celebrated my successes without feeling threatened by them. "You are going to run this place someday," Ryan told me after I received my second promotion in 18 months, "and I am going to be telling everyone I knew you when." I had been at Meridian for just over 2 years when I received an unexpected call from my mother. We had spoken only a handful of times since my graduation, brief, surface-level conversations that never touched on anything meaningful. "Your father is in the hospital," she said, her voice uncharacteristically subdued. "He had a heart attack yesterday. He needs bypass surgery." Despite years of emotional distance, the news hit me hard. Is he going to be okay? "The doctors say the surgery has risks, but it is necessary. The problem is," she hesitated, "our insurance does not cover everything, and the out-of-pocket costs are substantial." How substantial? Nearly $70,000. I felt a surge of conflicting emotions. My father had never shown me the support or recognition I craved, yet the thought of financial concerns affecting his medical care was unacceptable to me. "I will call the hospital," I said. "Give me the details." After speaking with the hospital's billing department, I contacted a lawyer who had done some estate planning work for me. Together, we set up an anonymous trust that would cover my father's medical expenses. I made it clear that my name should never be associated with the payments. "The hospital will simply be informed that a family trust is covering the costs," my lawyer explained. "They will not question it further." 2 days later, my mother called again, her voice animated with relief and confusion. "The hospital says everything is covered. They said some family trust is paying for it all." "Did Travis arrange this?" "He said he was working on something, but I had no idea he had those kinds of resources." I took a deep breath. "That is wonderful news, Mom. I am glad Dad is getting the care he needs. Travis is amazing. I do not know how he pulled this off, but your father is so proud." I said nothing to contradict her assumption. Part of me wanted to claim credit, to finally show them what their overlooked son had accomplished. But a deeper part knew that the truth would change our relationship forever, and I was not ready for that. My support would remain anonymous, at least for now. My career continued its remarkable trajectory. By 28, I had been promoted to senior director, managing a team of 30 financial analysts and reporting directly to the C-suite. My innovations in risk assessment and market prediction had become part of Meridian's standard practices, saving the firm and its clients hundreds of millions of dollars. During this time, I reconnected with Jessica Parker, whom I had briefly dated during my final year at Wharton. She had gone on to law school and was now working at a corporate law firm in Manhattan. Our reconnection quickly deepened into a serious relationship. "You are different now," she observed over dinner one night. "More confident, but also more guarded. Is that bad?" She considered the question thoughtfully. "Not bad. Understandable, given what you have told me about your family. But I wonder if you have fully processed how their treatment affected you." It was a fair question, one I had avoided examining too closely. My solution had been to compartmentalize that part of my life, rather than address it directly. That compartmentalization was tested when Meridian faced a major crisis. A significant market downturn threatened thousands of jobs across the company. As the situation grew dire, I developed an innovative restructuring strategy that would preserve jobs while maintaining profitability. I presented it directly to the CEO, bypassing several layers of management. It was a risky move professionally, but the plan worked. Not only did it save the company from massive layoffs, but it positioned Meridian to emerge from the downturn stronger than before. 3 months later, I was promoted to Chief Financial Officer at the age of 32, the youngest in the company's history. My first action as CFO was to increase the funding to my parents' trust. My father's health had stabilized, but ongoing care costs were substantial. Through careful monitoring of their financial situations, I also learned that their mortgage was underwater, and they were struggling with basic expenses. I instructed my lawyer to arrange for the trust to cover their mortgage payments and set up automatic payments for their utilities and major bills. All of this remained anonymous, though I suspected they assumed Travis was behind it somehow. I maintained minimal contact during this time, calling on holidays and occasionally visiting when I could not avoid it. During these rare visits, the old patterns persisted. My parents continued to ask about my job, as if I were still in an entry-level position. They spoke about Travis's prospects with enthusiasm, despite the fact that he had moved back into their home, supposedly between opportunities. "Travis is consulting for some major companies," my father told me during one visit. "Confidential stuff, very high level." I nodded, knowing from their financial records that Travis had not had reportable income in over a year. What I did not know yet was that he had been opening credit cards in our parents' names, racking up debt that they would eventually be responsible for. I discovered this disturbing fact during a routine review of their finances with my lawyer. Travis had opened 6 different credit cards using their information and had accumulated nearly $30,000 in debt. "Should we alert them to the fraud?" my lawyer asked. I considered it carefully. Revealing this would mean exposing my involvement in their finances, which I was not prepared to do yet. It would also mean potentially serious legal consequences for Travis. No, I decided. Adjust the trust to cover the minimum payments for now. I will handle this another way when the time is right. I increased the monthly support from the trust, but maintained my distance emotionally. The contradiction was not lost on me, that I was silently supporting the very people who had dismissed my capabilities for decades. Jessica questioned this arrangement more than once. "You are enabling the same dynamic that hurt you," she pointed out. "They still do not know who you really are or what you have accomplished." "I know," I admitted, "but I am not ready to change that yet." What I did not tell her was that each time I considered revealing the truth, a childhood fear resurfaced, a deep-seated belief that somehow they would still find a way to diminish my achievements, to make them seem less significant than whatever Travis had done most recently. It was irrational, but it was powerful. So I continued the charade, visiting quarterly, enduring their subtle and not-so-subtle belittling, all while secretly ensuring their financial stability. It was an unsustainable situation, but I did not yet see a way out that would not cause more pain than it resolved. The peculiar double life I had created continued for the next 2 years. Every few months, I would visit my parents' home, where Travis still lived. He maintained an illusion of success with his leased luxury car and designer clothes, all funded by credit card debt in our parents' names. Meanwhile, I arrived in my modest but reliable sedan, dressed well but not ostentatiously, and endured their continued perception of me as somehow less accomplished than my brother. Travis has been talking to some investors about his app idea, my father announced during one Sunday dinner. They are very interested. Could be worth millions. I nodded politely, knowing from my position in the financial world that Travis's revolutionary social media concept was actually a poorly conceived knockoff of existing platforms that would never attract serious funding. "How is your work going, Hudson?" my mother asked, with the tone one might use to ask a child about a school art project. "It is going well," I said simply. "Busy, but good. Still at that same company?" "What is it again, Meridian?" "Yes, still there." "Well, that is nice." "Stability is important," she said, making it sound like a consolation prize. "Not everyone can be an entrepreneur like Travis." I took a deep breath and changed the subject. These visits were exercises in restraint, in not revealing that I personally oversaw billions of dollars in transactions, that my annual compensation package was worth 7 figures, or that I anonymously paid for the roof over their heads, the food on their table, and the health care that kept my father alive. The situation took a darker turn when my mother was diagnosed with breast cancer. The diagnosis was serious, requiring expensive treatment not covered by their basic insurance. Without hesitation, I arranged through my lawyer to upgrade their coverage to a premium plan and added provisions for experimental treatment options if necessary. A week after these arrangements were made, I received an excited call from my mother. "Travis has found a special program that will cover all my treatments," she exclaimed. "The hospital says I qualify for some exclusive cancer care plan with all the newest treatments." Travis must have pulled some strings with his connections. I closed my eyes, absorbing the familiar sting of Travis taking credit for my support. "That is wonderful news, Mom. I am so glad you will get the best care possible. Your brother has always looked out for us. You could learn a lot from him about taking care of family." The irony was almost too much to bear, but I said nothing. During the family Christmas gathering that year, the contrast between Travis's facade and my reality reached new heights. Travis presented our parents with extravagant gifts, a large screen television and expensive watches, all purchased with their stolen credit. I brought thoughtfully selected but modestly priced presents, a collection of first edition books for my father's shelf, and a cashmere sweater for my mother. Their tepid response made it clear they found my offerings disappointing, compared to Travis's grand gestures. "Some of us have to live within our means," my father said with a pointed look at my gifts. "But it is the thought that counts, I suppose." Jessica, who had accompanied me to this gathering, squeezed my hand under the table. Later that night in our hotel room, she finally said what she had been thinking for months. "This has to stop, Hudson. You are living a lie, and it is eating away at you. What would you have me do? Tell them I have been secretly supporting them for years while they praised Travis for things he never did." "Yes, exactly that. Or at the very least, stop enabling this twisted dynamic. Set some boundaries." She was right, but I was not ready to take that step. The thought of confronting years of built-up resentment and misunderstanding was overwhelming. My reluctance to act was challenged the very next day. While helping my mother in the kitchen, I overheard a conversation between Travis and my father in the adjacent dining room. "Hudson seems to be doing okay," my father said. "Not setting the world on fire, but steady." Travis laughed. "Are you kidding? From what I have heard, he is basically just a bookkeeper at that company. Probably could not hack real finance, so they stuck him in some back office doing spreadsheets. Well, we always knew he was not cut out for success like you, Travis. He tries hard, though. Yeah, in that sad, trying to please everyone kind of way. Did you see Jessica? Way out of his league. Wonder what she sees in him." I stood frozen, coffee pot in hand, as they continued to diminish not just my career but my character and relationship. My mother noticed my expression. "Did you need something, Hudson?" I set down the coffee pot carefully. "No. I just remembered we need to get back to the city earlier than planned." Jessica and I left an hour later, with hastily manufactured excuses about work commitments. I said nothing about what I had overheard. Instead, I returned to New York, increased the monthly support to my parents through the trust, and decreased my already limited contact with them even further. Jessica did not press me on the subject again, seeming to understand that I needed to come to my own resolution in my own time. Our relationship deepened, despite the unresolved family situation, and 6 months later, I asked her to marry me. She accepted, and we began planning our future together. I did not immediately tell my family about the engagement. It was Jessica who eventually insisted we share the news in person. They are still your family, Hudson. Despite everything. I knew she was right. Whatever their flaws, whatever pain they had caused me, they should hear about this milestone directly from me. So I scheduled another visit, preparing myself for the familiar patterns of dismissal and disappointment. My mother's treatment had gone well, and my parents organized a celebration dinner to mark her being in remission. I decided this would be the appropriate time to introduce Jessica as my fiancée and share our engagement news. We arrived at the house on a warm Saturday evening in June. My mother hugged Jessica warmly, but gave me only a cursory greeting. My father shook my hand briefly before turning his attention to Travis, who was showing off his newest purchase, an expensive watch that I immediately recognized as being available only to premier credit card holders, the very ones he had fraudulently opened in our parents' names. Hudson and I have some news, I said once we were all seated at the dinner table. We are engaged. There was a moment of silence before my mother said, "Well, that is nice. When did this happen?" "Last month," Jessica replied, extending her hand to show the ring. "We wanted to tell you in person." "Congratulations," my father said, his tone indicating it was more a social nicety than genuine enthusiasm. "Marriage is a big responsibility. I hope you are prepared for it, Hudson." Before I could respond, Travis interjected. "Speaking of big news, I have been interviewing for a major position. One of the top financial firms in New York is considering me for CFO. I nearly choked on my water. The absurdity of Travis claiming to be in consideration for a C-level position when he had no relevant experience or education would have been comical if my parents had not immediately showered him with effusive praise. "That is incredible, Travis," my mother exclaimed. "Always knew you were destined for big things." My father beamed with pride. Chief Financial Officer at a top firm. Now that is real success. He glanced at me. "This is what it looks like when someone really applies themselves, Hudson. This is the kind of achievement that makes a father proud." I sat in stunned silence as they continued to gush over Travis's fabricated career prospect. Jessica's hand found mine under the table, squeezing it supportively. The dinner proceeded with barely another mention of our engagement. Instead, the conversation revolved entirely around Travis's fictional job opportunity and my parents' pride in his accomplishments. Midway through the meal, my phone rang. Seeing it was Ryan, now my deputy CFO at Meridian, I excused myself to take the call. "Hudson, sorry to bother you on a Saturday, but the Anderson merger is hitting some complications. The SEC has questions about the valuation, and we need your approval on the revised terms before the Asian markets open." "What is the discrepancy?" "About $2 billion. Their accountants missed some liabilities in the initial assessment. I have recalculated the terms, but we need your sign-off before proceeding. Send me the revised figures. I will review them and call you back within the hour." When I returned to the table, my father raised an eyebrow. "Everything okay at the office? Spreadsheet emergency?" He and Travis exchanged amused glances. "Just some work that needs my attention later," I said, not taking the bait. "Must be nice having such a flexible job," Travis commented. "My interviews have been intense. These big firms expect their executives to be available 24/7. My mother nodded sympathetically. "I do not know how you do it, Travis." Such pressure. After dinner, as we moved to the living room for coffee, Travis pulled me aside. "Hey, I need to talk to you about something," he said, his voice low. "I am in a bit of a financial bind right now. Nothing major, just a temporary cash flow issue until this new position comes through." I looked at him steadily. "What kind of financial bind?" "I just need about $15,000 to cover some expenses." Just until next month. You must have some savings, right? Even on your salary. The audacity was breathtaking. Before I could respond, my father joined us. Everything okay here? Travis was just asking me for a $15,000 loan, I said evenly. My father's expression hardened. Well, if you can help your brother out, you should. He would do the same for you if the situations were reversed. Family supports family, Hudson. Does family also steal from family? I asked, the words out before I could stop them. Travis's face flushed. What is that supposed to mean? My father stepped between us. Hudson, if you cannot help, just say so. No need to make accusations because you are jealous of your brother's success. Jealous? The word hung in the air between us. My mother and Jessica had now joined the group, aware that something tense was unfolding. Let us just enjoy our evening, my mother suggested, trying to diffuse the situation. We are celebrating good news tonight. You are right, my father agreed, then added with a dismissive look at me, though some of us have more to celebrate than others. The truth is, Hudson, you will never be as good as your brother. That is just something you need to accept. It was the same phrase I had heard countless times throughout my life, but something about hearing it now, in front of Jessica, after everything I had silently done for them, broke something loose inside me. I stood up, straightened my shoulders, and looked directly at my parents. Then tell him to pay all the bills, I said, my voice calm and measured. I am not sending money anymore. My mother's face went pale. What money? We never received a single dollar from you. The room fell completely silent. Travis looked like he might be sick. My father's expression shifted from confusion to wariness. What are you talking about, Hudson? He asked. The moment of truth had arrived. Ready or not, who do you think has been paying your mortgage for the past 5 years? I asked quietly. Your property taxes? Your utilities? Dad's medical bills? Mom's cancer treatments? My father's face hardened. Travis handles our finances. He set up some kind of family trust or something. I turned to Travis. Is that what you told them? That you created a trust to cover their expenses? Travis swallowed hard but said nothing. Check your records, I suggested to my parents. Call the mortgage company. Ask who makes the payments. Check with the hospital about who upgraded your insurance policy to cover experimental treatments. This is ridiculous, my mother said, but her voice lacked conviction. Why would you make up something like this? I pulled out my phone and dialed a number. Let me clarify this right now. I put the call on speaker as it connected. Blackwell and Associates, how may I direct your call? Came the receptionist's voice. Alan Blackwell, please. Tell him it is Hudson Carter. A moment later, a deep voice came through the speaker. Hudson, I was not expecting to hear from you on a Saturday evening. Is everything all right? Alan, I am with my family right now, and I need to clarify something about the family trust we established. You are on speaker. I see, Alan said, his tone becoming more formal. What would you like to know? Can you confirm when the trust was established and the approximate total support it has provided to my parents to date? There was a brief pause. Are you authorizing me to disclose this information to the people present? Yes, I am. Very well. The Harrison Carter Family Support Trust was established 5 years and 3 months ago. To date, it has provided approximately $320,000 in financial support, covering mortgage payments, utilities, insurance premiums, and medical expenses for Harrison and Linda Carter. The silence in the room was deafening. My mother sat down heavily, her face ashen. My father stared at me in disbelief. And who is the trustee and sole contributor to this trust? I asked, though we all now knew the answer. You are, Hudson. 100% of the funds have come from your personal accounts. Thank you, Alan. That will be all for now. After I ended the call, no one spoke for several long moments. Finally, my father found his voice. Why would you keep this a secret? Why let us think it was Travis? I never said it was Travis, I pointed out. You assumed that on your own. I simply never corrected you. Travis, seeing the jig was up, broke down. I did not know what to say when they started getting notices that their bills were paid. They looked at me, and I did not deny it. You actively took credit for it, I corrected him. And while I was covering their legitimate expenses, you were opening fraudulent credit cards in their names. My mother gasped. What? Travis has opened 6 credit cards in your names over the past 3 years. He has charged nearly $50,000 that you are legally responsible for. My father turned to Travis, his expression thunderous. Is this true? Travis's face crumpled. I have a gambling problem, he admitted. I kept thinking I could win it all back and pay everything off before anyone found out. The revelation seemed to physically impact my father. He clutched his chest and staggered slightly. Dad? I moved quickly to his side as he collapsed into a chair, his breathing labored. I think he is having another heart attack, my mother cried. I was already dialing 911. Within minutes, paramedics arrived and confirmed my father was experiencing cardiac distress. As they prepared to transport him to the hospital, I took charge of the situation despite years of mistreatment. I will follow in my car, I told my mother. Jessica can drive you. Travis, you stay here and gather Dad's medication list. At the hospital, something unexpected happened. As the emergency team rushed my father through the doors, one of the administrators recognized me. Mr. Carter, I did not know your father was the patient. I will notify Dr. Reynolds immediately. My mother looked at me in confusion. Do you know her? Before I could respond, the administrator continued. We will make sure your father receives care in the Carter cardiovascular wing, of course. The what? My mother asked. The cardiac care unit that Mr. Carter donated last year, the administrator explained. It is the most advanced facility in the state. My mother turned to me, her expression a mix of shock and dawning comprehension. You donated a hospital wing? I nodded slightly. It seemed like a good investment after Dad's first heart attack. While we waited for news about my father's condition, Jessica received a call from our home security system. The motion sensors had been triggered at my parents' house. It is probably just Travis moving around, I said. The alert says it is the master bedroom, Jessica replied with concern, and the jewelry drawer specifically. I immediately called Travis, but he did not answer. I then called the local police and asked them to check the house, explaining that my father was in the hospital and the house should be empty. 20 minutes later, an officer called to inform me they had caught Travis attempting to leave with a collection of valuables, including my mother's jewelry and my father's rare coin collection. He claimed he was securing the items for safekeeping, the officer explained, but he had also packed electronics and was loading them into his car. I asked them to hold him at the station until we could sort things out. When I told my mother, she broke down completely. How could we have been so wrong? She sobbed. About everything? About both of you? It was a question that had no simple answer, but it was the beginning of a long overdue reckoning. My father stabilized after a few hours. His cardiologist, Dr. Reynolds, came to speak with us personally. Mr. Carter, your father is stable. It was not a full heart attack, but a severe episode of angina triggered by emotional stress. We will keep him overnight for observation, but I expect he will make a full recovery. Thank you, doctor, I said. Dr. Reynolds nodded respectfully. The least we can do for the man who made our cardiac research program possible. After the doctor left, my mother looked at me with new eyes. You are not just working at Meridian, are you? What do you actually do there? It was time for the full truth. I took a deep breath. I am the Chief Financial Officer. I have been for the past 3 years. Before that, I was Senior Director of Risk Management, Chief Financial. You are an executive? Yes, one of 5 C-suite officers running the company. My mother shook her head in disbelief. But you never said anything. All these years, you let us think that I was a failure. I finished for her. Yes, I did, because that is what you always believed, no matter what evidence was in front of you. Jessica pulled out her phone and showed my mother a recent business magazine. On the cover was a photo of me in a boardroom with the headline Financial Wonderkind: How Hudson Carter Transformed Meridian's Approach to Global Markets. My mother took the magazine with trembling hands. "This is really you?" "Yes. That article came out 2 months ago. I have a copy at home. I considered sending it to you but decided against it." "Why?" "Because I was tired of trying to prove myself to you and Dad. Nothing was ever good enough when compared to Travis. So I stopped trying." That night marked the beginning of a profound shift in my family dynamics. As my father recovered in the hospital, my mother began the painful process of confronting decades of toxic favoritism and its consequences. The full extent of their misconceptions about both their sons was devastating to her. My father was released from the hospital 3 days later. The doctors confirmed that while the episode was serious, with proper medication and stress management, he would recover fully. The physical healing, however, would prove simpler than the emotional reconciliation that lay ahead. When I visited my parents at home the following weekend, the atmosphere was radically different. Gone was the casual dismissiveness, replaced by an awkward uncertainty about how to relate to the son they had misjudged for so long. "We need to talk about everything," I said, sitting across from them in the living room. "Not just the financial support, but the years of favoritism and dismissal that led us here." My father, looking frailer than I had ever seen him, nodded slowly. "I do not even know where to begin, Hudson." "I do," I replied. "I am setting clear boundaries going forward. I will continue to ensure your financial security, but openly now, through proper channels. Travis needs professional help, and I will pay for treatment if he is willing to commit to it. But most importantly, we need family therapy if we are going to rebuild any kind of relationship." My mother wiped away tears. "We do not deserve your help after how we treated you." "This is not about what anyone deserves," I explained. "It is about breaking a cycle that has hurt everyone involved, including Travis. He became who you expected him to be, just as I did. The difference is that your expectations of me were actually beneficial in the long run, even if the way you expressed them was painful." My father looked confused. "How could our lack of faith in you possibly have been beneficial?" "Because it taught me to find validation within myself, instead of seeking it externally. It made me self-reliant and resilient. But it also left emotional scars that I am still dealing with." Travis entered a treatment program for gambling addiction the following week. During family therapy sessions, which began concurrently, the extent of my parents' toxic favoritism was laid bare. The therapist, Dr. Winters, helped them understand how their behavior had damaged both their sons in different ways. "You created a golden child and a scapegoat dynamic," she explained during our 3rd session. "Travis was set up to feel entitled to praise without achievement, while Hudson was set up to feel his achievements were never worthy of recognition." My mother broke down during that session. "I always thought we were being fair. I told myself we were protecting Hudson from disappointment and preventing Travis from feeling inadequate. How could we have been so blind?" The therapy was painful but necessary. Slowly, over the following months, my parents began to recognize patterns in their behavior that stretched back to their own childhoods. My father, particularly, came to see how his own father's criticism had led him to overcompensate with Travis while repeating the pattern of dismissal with me. One afternoon, about 4 months into our therapy, my parents asked me to help them clean out the attic. Among the dusty boxes, we discovered a collection of my childhood achievements they had stored away rather than displayed. A box containing every award, certificate, and recognition I had earned. "We kept everything," my mother said softly. "Deep down, I think we were proud, but did not know how to show it without feeling like we were diminishing Travis." It was a small revelation, but a meaningful one. They had not discarded my achievements, merely hidden them away, much as I had hidden my adult success from them. Travis completed his 90-day treatment program and, with my support, entered financial counseling to address the debt he had accumulated. When he was ready, I offered him an entry-level position at Meridian, in the accounts receivable department. It was a humble role, far from the executive position he had fabricated, but it was an honest start. "I do not deserve this chance," he told me on his first day. This is not about deserving, I replied. It is about moving forward. You will be judged solely on your performance, just like any other employee. No special treatment, positive or negative. A year after the dramatic revelation dinner, we gathered again at my parents' home. The differences were striking. My parents treated both Travis and me with equal respect and recognition. Travis, now 6 months sober and paying down his debts, spoke honestly about his progress and challenges without exaggeration or false bravado. During dinner, Jessica and I shared our own news. We were expecting our first child. "That is wonderful," my mother exclaimed, with genuine joy. "When are you due?" "October," Jessica answered. "Just in time for fall." "Our first grandchild," my father said, his eyes misting. What a blessing. After dinner, I shared another piece of news. I had established a scholarship foundation for academically gifted students who lacked family support. The first scholarship had been named after Mr. Knight, after Mr. Heason's Garner, my middle school math teacher who had driven me to the national competition when my parents chose to attend Travis's baseball game instead. I found him, actually, I told my parents. He is retired now. When I told him about the scholarship in his name, he remembered me immediately. "We miss so much," my father said quietly. "So many moments we should have been there for." "We cannot change the past," I acknowledged. "But we can learn from it." The healing was not instantaneous or complete. There were still moments of tension, old habits that resurfaced and needed to be addressed. But there was also genuine effort on all sides to build something healthier. For me, the greatest growth came not from receiving the validation I had once craved, but from realizing I no longer needed it as desperately. My worth was not determined by their recognition, though their newfound respect was meaningful. The true triumph was breaking free from the need for their approval while still opening myself to the possibility of an authentic relationship. 2 years after that fateful dinner, I found myself mentoring a young analyst at Meridian who reminded me of myself at that age, brilliant but unsure of his place in the world. "The hardest lesson I ever learned," I told him, "was that you cannot control how others value you, but you can refuse to accept their assessment as your truth. Success is not just about proving others wrong. It is about living authentically according to your own standards." It was a lesson hard won through years of pain and eventual reconciliation, but one that had made all the difference in finding true fulfillment beyond the balance sheets and boardrooms. Have you ever had to prove your worth to someone who consistently underestimated you? How did that experience shape your life choices? I would love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe for more content that explores the complexities of family relationships and personal growth. And if you know someone who might find encouragement in this journey, please share it with them. Thank you for listening. And remember, your value is not determined by others' failure to see it.